Hello, welcome back to Entertainment Recast, the podcast offshoot of our YouTube channel, Entertainment Rebooted. Today's topic, we are talking about, Pat, we're talking about visual effects versus
special effects, aka practical effects.
Okay, so practical effects and
Visual effects. Yeah.
Okay, and as I've already just spoiled the surprise, instead of being joined by my esteemed co-host DJ, I am joined by the overpowered co-host of Pat. Overpowering presence of Pat.
Yeah.
If I overemphasize the P's, perhaps.
You're the one that gave me the power to choose.
That's true. Never give other people the option to choose, John. Maintain control over all things. That's what OCD tells us too.
Yep.
All right. This is Pat's topic, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hand it over to Pat. Take it away.
Well, hello there, folks. I'm Pat. So, today's topic, mostly just coming up because it's something I think about a lot. Visual effects versus practical effects. Now, just a quick rundown for people. Visual effects are usually things added in post. They are CGI and CGI, computer generated, you know?
Generated. Yep.
They are like green screen work,
filters added in, but in post.
Yeah, all post work.
Yeah.
And then practical effects, also known as special effects. Yes, those are the same thing. And I was, of course, making that mistake for a while, but, you know, you live and learn. Those are things that are done on set while filming. They are props, they're prosthetics, they're makeup, they're your explosions on set.
You're moving set pieces. Camera tricks. They are modeling. If you've seen the Mythbusters, it's what Adam and Jamie did. They were practical effects artists?
Yes, they were practical effects artists before they became the Mythbusters.
Oh, nice. I knew that they were working in films.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I didn't correlate. I was like, yeah, they worked in movies.
Yeah, they were the practical effects artists. I think Adam actually worked on at least one of the Star Wars.
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, probably worked for Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know Grant Imahara made the driving Mountain Dew machine for Mountain Dew commercial.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It shot Mountain Dew cans out.
That couldn't have gone wrong.
Oh, no.
Just shooting full cans of soda at people.
Yeah, you know. So what we're really kind of getting down is this is kind of like why each one of them happens, which one we feel is more, I guess we feel is more authentic.
Which one works better?
Like
where does each one fit into why we prefer it over the other?
Yeah.
In certain situations, like how does it work? How does it not work? We'll talk about some examples and stuff too, like in movies, because there's plenty of times when effects have pulled me out of films.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that. A lot of people have talked about, CGI versus practical, but we'll just talk kind of like in general and how we think it could work out.
Yeah, it's like this is down to, it's mostly just because like I said, I've thought about this segment as well. I know I have my feelings about it. John's got his, and just kind of what we frame our mind of movies as.
Yeah. Makes sense. All right, let's get into it, Pat.
Alrighty. So I will start off by saying I have a mild bias towards practical effects.
Oh, I'm 100% biased towards practical effects.
That's right.
I'm 100%. Like I'm not gonna lie. I've made it pretty clear on the channel. Like I think I've said with DJ, I've been like, nothing beats actually having to do getting dragged behind a vehicle. You can't replicate that in CGI.
It's really hard to do.
It's really hard to do. Also horror. I think that horror really needs to lean into practical effects. It just most movies, because horror has such a low budget to begin with.
Yeah, like Saw.
Yeah, exactly.
Saw was literally made by art students, and most of that first movie was shot in one room.
Yep, and all of the stuff that they did was practical.
Yeah.
But horror in general is a lower budget kind of movie. Not a lot of studios throw a bunch of money into them. And as a result, you don't necessarily have the budget for great CGI work.
Yeah.
And which is why most times when CGI comes into horror as compared to practical, it doesn't work very well.
Yeah.
So, but I am biased towards practical. I think that we've become too reliant on CGI.
There is, yeah. I gotta say, practical effects, that just, it sometimes helps the movie kind of flow easier sometimes, because when an actor has something in their hands or they're seeing something while they're filming it, they're able to, it's a more true interaction.
Right.
They're able to kind of flow with it more. They're able to immerse themselves in it instead of seeing a tennis ball floating and being like, hey, this is where the monster's head is.
Right. And they don't necessarily know how to react, because it's easier to react to something when you see the whole picture. Yeah. Floating tennis ball sorry, but if I can imagine something, I think that this is true with most people. If I'm imagining something horrifying, terrifying, it's kind of hard to get psyched out about something I'm imagining.
Yeah.
As compared to if somebody showed something to me, even if I know it's fake, even if I know it's practical, like haunted houses, for instance. Yeah. When there's an actual thing there.
Oh, yeah.
You can kind of get into it a bit more.
Yeah.
So there's something to that. Very few actors can pull off the green screen acting. Yeah. I think the prime example of a good actor doing that would be Ewan McGregor. And very few people can do it. Because if you think about like Star Wars, the prequels, most of his scenes are shot, if you look at the behind the scenes, it's him in a blue room with like blue tennis balls.
Yeah.
Like that's all he has. And he's talked about it on interviews where it's like, it's just green. And George is in the background shouting, look at the moons! Look to the moons! And it's a blue wall.
Yeah. Like,
you know.
And, you know, the practical effects, it brings more humanity to the film, which allows us as an audience to equate and draw in with it more.
Yeah, definitely. Like a subconscious thing.
Yeah.
We can tell when something's there or not.
Yeah.
And it could be like a ridiculous practical effect, but when we see it on screen and it's actually there, it's easier for us mentally to be like, that's a thing.
Yeah.
That's a tangible thing.
It is more easily accessible to your willing disbelief.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. The suspension of disbelief. It's harder to do when you're looking at something and you're like, that's animated.
Yeah. And I will state, for visual effects, they have greatly improved.
Oh, yeah.
From what they used to be. And, you know, someday in the future, this debate may seem completely mute with, you know, advances in technology and every day, but, like, I still feel like in that heart, unless they're seeing it as we're seeing it, there's going to be a disconnect.
Yeah. I think so. Because we are seeing the final product.
Yeah.
They are not.
Oh, yeah, no.
I think that one of the things... Recently, I saw the new Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes movies. Yeah. The vast majority of those films are CGI.
Yeah.
Gorgeous. Beautifully done. Really well rendered. But you can kind of tell when the human actors are interacting with an animated thing.
Yeah.
That they might not react as naturally.
Yeah.
As they would if they were seeing what we're seeing.
Another one would be like Avatar.
Which one?
Blue people.
The blue people. Okay.
I mean, the live action Avatar as well. That one's got its own issues that we just don't have time to get into.
Bane of my existence. Hate it every second.
The blue one, like, if you've seen actual like screenshots from shooting, you can see that they have the actors that are playing the natives, who I can't think of their race's name.
Navi.
The Navi, yes, thank you. Playing the natives, Navi, they are there, like, with their they have like makeup on their face on top of the motion capture things.
Yeah.
Because they're still like tying that in. So it's kind of a blur of practical and visual at that point.
Well, yeah, because they're interacting with other actors at the same time, but they're doing CG work outside. So they're in like a blank room.
Yeah.
But at least they're able to interact with each other. So the dialogue works well.
Yeah.
Even if sometimes it could be a little
yeah,
odd,
like
where they're looking.
A lot of like when they're interacting with the other animals on Pandora. Mm-hmm. Like there's certain things that like when the animals do something, like it's kind of a loss. Like maybe they're a few seconds behind, a few seconds ahead that you can kind of notice. Because like when he first captures the
flying thing. Yeah. It's been forever since I've seen it, but
yeah. Or like the first time he like interfaces with the horse.
Yeah, you can kind of tell that it's a motion captured person and a thing that's not there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also whenever the humans show up, it becomes really blatant.
Yeah.
If they're outside of the element. So what I mean by that is like when the humans are like in the mech suits and stuff.
Yeah.
And the mech suits obviously generated and the battle scenes are all generated. Gorgeous film. It you can kind of tell though that it gets lost. The magic gets lost if there's a human being a human
while all that's going on.
in this CGI fest. That is one thing that James Cameron actually did really well though, if you think about it. He made it to the point where he had an excuse that humans don't go outside and interact with the gorgeous aspects of the nature.
Yeah.
They have to be in Na'vi form to do it because of the toxic air.
So, because the air, they couldn't breathe it as well, or they had to be in the mech suits.
Yeah.
Because this planet was really not meant for humans.
Right. But it's clever that he did that because I think he was aware of the fact that if I have humans walking around,
there is a disconnect.
There will be a disconnect. So when you're doing CGI, you kind of have to have CGI on top of CGI.
Yeah.
You can't really do practical person with CGI. That's when mentally we have that disconnect.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. No, like subconscious disconnect, suspension of disbelief. That's a big thing.
Yeah.
What are some examples that you have of things that like didn't do it well and why?
So, one example would be Expendables 4.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Awful CGI.
Yeah, multiple times the plane taking off. We quoted after seeing that it's like all of a sudden we're in a Grand Theft Auto game.
Yeah, it was that level of graphic. Yeah. Awful. Like the green screen at the end when they're all like going to the boat. You're literally sitting there watching it and you're like, this is a set.
Yeah.
They're not actually on water and that's not an actual sunset.
Yeah.
Because they failed to even like get the CG around their heads right. So it was just one of those things. It was just really poorly done. Yeah.
Now then, if you want to like look at a film that did practical effects well, Titanic.
Oh yeah, most of that was practical.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of it was. He actually, you can't really beat it. Like when the grand staircase, when the water comes out of the dome.
Yeah.
It's dangerous.
Oh yeah,
that's an issue with practical effects.
That is one of the things.
It can be dangerous, but you cannot replicate that water hitting the grand staircase.
Yeah.
In CG, well, especially 97. But I even think today you would have a hard time.
Even today, there would be like you would notice.
Yeah.
Water is one of the hardest things to render.
Yeah, it's got to be because it flows in a logical way, but it can also be kind of unpredictable just depending on what it hits. It reflects off of itself. It can reflect off of its own surface. Maybe it hits something underneath at a certain angle and now it's going a different way.
And there's also just the light.
Yeah. Light refraction.
How light deals with water.
Yeah.
It's such a hard thing to actually render.
Yeah, it is one of those things. It's very, very hard to render. That's why it's like, I love practical effects, but you do have to give kudos to CGI artists. Like,
true,
they are doing the impossible.
I'm not saying they're
they're but I just wanted to say, like,
Yeah.
we're not bashing on CGI artists and stuff. It is amazing what they're able to do.
Oh yeah, they are always taking leaps and bounds ahead, and it is truly impressive. And when CGI is done right, it is very good.
Yeah.
The main problem that we have with it is it's hard to do right.
Yeah, it's
and
hard
the
to do
over
right.
reliance sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not always on the artist's end though. There's a lot that the artist has to do because they were told to do it.
Oh yeah, I mean studio pressure.
Pressure.
Yeah, somebody is just like, or even like laziness. I think I don't want to assume laziness, but sometimes I think that probably, you're a month into shooting, maybe you're behind, maybe you got different pressure, and suddenly you have a scene that happens, and your immediate reaction isn't, all right, let's reset.
Yeah.
Let's do the same thing. Let's make another explosion. Let's rig it all up and get all the calculations right. The angle wasn't quite right. Instead, they'd probably just look at it and they go, we'll fix it in post.
Yeah.
We'll just animate the explosion.
Yeah.
We'll animate it, whatever.
Because like we said, there's a lot of, like, they're doing great work. They're making leaps and bounds, but sometimes they just get the shit end of the stick and they just get it heaped on them.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and it's become so normal to overuse CGI.
Yeah.
And there's so few studios that are doing it really well is an issue.
Yeah.
Like last year, for instance, we had a bunch of movies that had awful CGI. And I kind of went on a little bit of a tangent because I found out like who was behind most of it. And it was a studio called Barnstorm Studios. And they were just pumping out bad CGI. Every product they were doing was bad. They did the last season of Man in the High Castle, but they also did Ant-Man 4, Thor: Love and Thunder, The Flash, and I think they had something to do with Expendables 4 too. Yeah. I'm not 100% on that last one, but I know that they were in a lot of big projects, and in all of the projects they were in, the main complaint people were having was the CGI is awful.
Yeah.
And so what I did was I kind of went and was like, well, it's the studio. It's Barnstorm. People keep hiring Barnstorm and they're not doing good work. But then now at the end of the year, I'm looking back at it and I'm like, yes, it was all Barnstorm, but it was all Barnstorm. You have one little studio
trying
doing
to do
6 major like cinematic events.
Yeah.
And they're rendering like 85% of it.
Yeah.
85% of Quantumania was not practical.
I mean, it would be a hard thing to do. You could do it, but it would be more expensive than the CGI.
Well, and the thing is though, it's partly Marvel's fault. I think they got so used to like, we can do all of this stuff in CGI.
Yeah.
All the last few Avengers films were just CGI fests. And as a result, we had this expectation of like cosmic. It has to be in the cosmic realm.
Yeah.
And all these new and exciting places that we can do with CGI, and we can put somebody anywhere. And Ant-Man's issue is that they wanted to give him an Avengers level threat so that he was taken more seriously.
Yeah.
The problem is that Ant-Man worked so well the two other ones because he just did like a fun heist film.
Yeah.
And the spy thriller film. A lot of that you can do practically. When you have to animate like 85% of it, and you're not going to spend like buku money on Ant-Man to do.
I mean, I like
CG.
Ant-Man, but like,
no, I love Ant-Man.
Yeah.
What I mean though is like, I'm as Marvel.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's just over-reliance, and then we're overworking the people who are doing it.
I will say another good movie that did do CGI pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Ready Player One.
I actually have not seen Ready Player One. I have heard good things about it, though.
Yeah. A large amount of that movie is CGI.
Yeah.
Because it is set in a digital world called the Oasis.
Right.
So like, but it's really well rendered. There's still like the main character for most of the movie is not actually seen as his human form.
Well, no, he's as his avatar, right?
Yeah, he's his avatar. All the people he's interacting with are their avatars. Mm-hmm. They're rendering like there's a massive battle that happens, and like there's multiple different forms of like even animation mixed in with it, which is truly impressive. Like it's just very well rendered.
Yeah. No, there's definitely places where it works out really well.
Yeah.
I think it goes kind of back to that principle though of like, if you're going to do CG, you might as well do everything CG.
And you gotta like, commit to it.
Yeah, you have to commit to it. CG.
You gotta commit to it. You gotta give it the time. You gotta give it the money.
Yeah. Exactly. You have to give it the time and the money too. Like, if you want really good CG and you're relying on CG, you got to expect to shell out more money into that CGI as compared to like big actors.
Yeah. And that's one of the things, like, a lot of people go to CG because certain aspects of it are cheaper than practical effects.
Yeah.
It is cheaper to add in a pre-recorded or digitally generated explosion than it is to have a trained professional
set up
staging explosions one or more times.
Well, and that's the thing too, is like with cameras and stuff like that, you have to expect to be able to do a shot 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
Just because of the materials. You do a crash. Like for instance, I just saw Fall Guy. It's a fun film if you haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it.
Most of it's practical. But you can kind of tell, like, while they're in the movie, they kind of point out why they take things so seriously.
Yeah.
And it's like, because literally one stunt can cost $20,000 for 3 minutes of film.
On top of that, adding in the stunt actor, there's that risk to life.
There's the risk to life. Yeah, we have professional stunt people that can do a lot of these things, but it still hurts.
Yeah.
Like, it's still, somebody went through a horrific crash.
Yeah.
He's able to, he has his tricks and he knows how to make himself.
You got your suits, you got your harnesses, you've got your padding, but nothing's going to, like, crashing a car at like 30 miles an hour is crashing a car at 30 miles an hour.
Oh yeah, and you're spinning and doing all these different things.
Yeah.
There's only so much that internally you can really take.
Yeah.
Like, you're putting your body under immense, like, somebody like crashes and rolls. You're putting your body through like G-force like no other. And that's all internal. There's nothing you can do to fix internal injury.
Like, you can prep yourself for it as much as you want. You can be as mentally like prepared. You're just like, this is gonna hurt.
Yeah.
And it is the thing. Like, there's no taking away that hurt.
No. And also things go wrong. Things are small. Like, you're literally, go back to the example with like Indiana Jones. You're literally dragging a man behind a truck.
Yeah.
There's rocks, there's sand, there's gravel. He's padded and he's wearing his jacket and you do everything you can for that.
Yeah.
You're still dragging a dude behind a truck. There's a lot of stuff that could go wrong with that.
Or throwing the flagpole through the wheel of the spoke of a bike.
Yeah, exactly. You miss that. Like, you get that just far off enough, you're killing somebody.
I mean, most of that is actually done with pre-rigged.
Yeah, and we have the rigging. We have they put a lot of like math and science into it, but it's still, there's risk.
Yeah,
something misfires, you get it off just enough. The bike's no longer flipping; it's just like horribly crashing. Yeah. But, so it's like CGI is justified.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of places where, yes, I would much rather have, like, we're doing explosions.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want to throw somebody into a field full of artillery pieces going off.
Okay, yeah, I guess. If you value human life.
But, like, like if I did like a World War I film.
Oh, yeah.
If I did a World War I film, I want as many explosions as possible. I want it to feel like they're getting shelled.
Yeah.
I'm not putting an actor in an active no man's land.
Yeah.
You know, I can do practical effects, and you map it out and you do it like they did old school, where it's like, yes, the explosion looks close, but it's actually like 15, 20 feet away.
Yeah.
But still, I'm going to have to add CG because I'm going to want it to look immense. I'm going to want it to look large.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily going to be able to get the rights to use a full-on battlefield in France.
Yeah.
And they're definitely not going to appreciate me
blowing
it up and turning it into no man's
battlefield in France.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh yeah, filmed on location. By the way, all the stuff that's been growing for the last 120 years, I'm destroying it with artillery pieces.
You know, no problem there. just see the movie.
Right. Somebody comes back and they're just like, oh, these are such gorgeous gardens. What the heck is happening over there? It's all scarred and charred.
I mean, there's still that scarring.
Well, like it's 100 years later, yeah. Like, but you know what I mean.
Trenches and everything, yeah.
Well, you can't get rid of those. They were built to last. Yeah. Like 100 years ago. Man, I wish there was more World War I films. Just mini tangent, but like, man, it's such a forgotten part of history.
Yeah.
But back to the CGI thing, though.
Yeah.
Yes, a film like that, you kind of need a lot of CG to be able to do it justice.
Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure large amounts of that film were practical effects.
And you could tell.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to get pulled out of it. But the CG that they use, so we could talk about this, actually, like when CG works out really well. CG works really well, I think, is like background.
Yes.
And like little things
that
you're not necessarily, it's not the focus.
Yeah.
And if it is the focus, the entire thing is kind of CG'd.
Yeah.
So, yes, obviously I'm not going to be able to scramble the largest air, sea, and land force to invade a country.
Yeah.
Just not happening.
It's not practical.
It's not practical. So you do CG.
Yeah.
But I think that you do tricks and stuff like that with a mix of practical and impractical.
Yeah.
CG. Do like Band of Brothers did. When you have the C-46s taking off from the airfield, they filmed one doing it 6-7 times and just put them over each other.
Yeah.
So you had one plane, but by the time you were done filming and doing, it was a practical shot.
Yeah.
But they digitally put it together.
Yeah.
So it's still technically CG. They had like a full fleet flying in the sky. And that's kind of what you have to do, I think, with war movies and stuff like that. You could CG an aircraft, but I think that the best way to do it is take an aircraft, film it for a while, doing like various different like maneuvers and stuff, and just re-render it into the larger. I think that that's where CG works well, especially in like war movies.
Yeah.
In the background, or to emphasize things when it's not the focus.
It's a nice flavor.
Yeah.
It's a nice little sprinkle of salt.
Right. Or car chases. A lot of times in car chases, it's only like 3-4 cars.
Oh yeah.
And then they later add it in where there's 16, 17 cars and they're actually like darting through traffic.
Yeah.
Some of that is a camera trick where they're really only driving 10, 15 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And they speed it up. Or they do like camera tricks where they're moving the camera. So it's making the car seem like it's moving.
Yeah.
You kind of zoom in and you get a little janky with it. It feels more like he's, jerking the wheel. But the other thing too is that sometimes they'll add in like vehicles and stuff digitally into the shot. Yeah. But because you're focused on the chase vehicles, it's harder to notice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something in passing is easier to pass off with CG than like he's the chase car and it's CG, but like everything around him is not.
Right. Yeah. I think if you're doing the focus, unless the entire scene is CG, you have to have the primary focus be a practical.
Yeah. And
you do the CG and the stuff that people aren't noticing. The car's blurring by you anyway in a chase.
Yeah.
You're not going to notice if it's CG motion blur. If it's somebody's face or somebody running,
yeah,
you get the uncanny CG blur.
Yeah.
And that's where you kind of break that suspension of disbelief.
Yeah.
So, any other examples you have of like, it works, it doesn't work? And
one example that was brought up multiple times, Yoda.
Yeah.
Originally as a puppet in those first films, and then...
Yeah, and then in like episode 2, suddenly he's a CG creature, and he's not actually there anymore. And then obviously 3, he's CG as well. But but he works well. CG Yoda, I think, works well in episode 3 when he's surrounded by CG.
Yeah.
Like when he's in a CG environment, the best scenes with Yoda are actually when he's interacting with like the clone troopers. When they have a practical Wookiee, it looks weird.
Yeah.
But when it's a CG clone trooper and a CG Yoda,
yeah,
it works really well.
Yeah, and that is one of the largest standing debates on practical versus visual.
Yeah. I think George Lucas is kind of at the center of a lot of CG debates.
He's not at the center of a lot of debates.
Well, he used to be, I guess. Like
True.
he was really the first one. Like
yeah.
The special editions of Star Wars. That's a good example of it working and not working.
That's where the Han shot first thing. That's where that argument came from.
Yeah, because in '97 when he re-released 4.
Yeah. Originally, Han Solo did shoot first, and then the re-release, they added in Greedo
taking the shot.
Yeah.
But they added it in poorly because they literally had Han try to be extra heroic and dodge.
Yeah.
And if you look, like, his head does not move naturally. It like shifts.
Yeah.
Like that, but not like you're dodging.
You can't see it because we're not recording. But
well, yeah,
we're shifting our heads back and forth.
If you're a Star Wars fan, though, you know.
Yeah.
Like, if you've seen the special edition,
you know. When you know, you know.
Or the special editions, man, they're a prime example of when it doesn't work, because all of the shots that he adds post do not work. The only one that works is the explosion of the Death Star, and barely.
Well, explosion of the Death Star was largely to do with modeling and then
an actual explosion.
Yeah.
It was just a disappointing explosion.
Yeah.
So he made it like this huge thing that's like I said, it's like the only one that kind of works. But it's because it's a standalone event. It is the event.
It is the event. It is your standing of CGI on CGI.
Yeah. That's true. Even if it's a practical Death Star, the explosion from then on, the entire shot is your CGI explosion on a digitally rendered backdrop.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too, is a lot of the original Star Wars is technically a visual digital effect. It's a CG generated effect. All the lasers.
Multiple parts of it.
Yeah. It's not really CG because it's like computers weren't really the biggest thing, but
yeah, it
is a post-production digitally added effect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. But yeah, like when he's interacting with Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah.
That doesn't work. That actually was a scene that was filmed. But Jabba, at the time that they filmed it, was a guy. And he's not speaking the Hutt's language. He's talking to Han.
Jabba the Hutt was actually 4 people in a suit.
Well, in the 6th one.
True.
The original Jabba the Hutt, when they were filming episode 4, was just a guy. Just in like a turban get up. It was just a dude. Have you seen the deleted scene?
I've not seen the deleted scene of it.
Oh, okay. It's the special edition scene without him stepping on his tail. And he's talking to a dude. Just a guy.
Oh.
Yeah. There's a reason it was cut out. It's kind of a boring scene.
Yeah.
But George got the good idea fairy and was like, I'm going to re-release this, and this deleted scene, I'm going to put Jabba the Hutt in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's like post.
Yeah.
You're talking 30, 40 years on an iconic film.
anything you do at that point, it's going to cause controversy.
Oh, definitely. And it's also just not going to work well. Like, digitally remastering something is different than adding something using CG.
Yeah.
It wasn't a good idea. And I hope Disney releases the original just remastered.
Eventually they probably will. I mean, it's a way to make money, and enough people will ask for it at some point.
I mean, people have been asking though since '97. People have speculated that George destroyed the original copies after he made the re-release, and that's why they don't.
Or they're buried on Skywalker Farm.
That's the other one too, is that he has them buried somewhere, but he refuses to release them. I don't know. I know that I have the special edition ones that I bought have the original cut, and they're on DVD, and I'm just like, I wish I could transfer it to Blu-ray, but I don't want to damage my DVD copies.
I think I might have the originals and these re-releases.
Yeah. I mean, I have the originals, and then I have tapes. I have a couple of tapes of the originals too.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's see. What other things work and don't work? The Mummy versus The Mummy Returns.
Yeah.
Same director, same studio, couple years apart, similar story.
Yeah.
And CG in both of them, but CG in '99 I think worked a lot better than it did in Returns. Obviously you have Rock Monster, but
Rock Monster?
Scorpion
King.
Rock with Gummy Johnson.
Oh. That is an example of bad CGI.
It's weird because it's a higher budget, same studio, same director.
It's a poor rendering of trying to save the essence of The Rock while making him into a scorpion monster.
Right. Like, how would you have handled that though? Like making him into a scorpion monster. It's terrifying aspect. Like, it's one of those things where it's like it's a good idea in your head, but it doesn't translate well. Is that the case, or how do you handle that?
It would be a bit more of a. I feel like a lot of that was them trying to generate it off of nothing.
Yeah.
You'd have to make more actual models and go a bit more practical, and then you add in with CGI.
Yeah. Yeah. I think also you have to film The Rock if you're going to put it on the face.
Yeah.
You can't replicate the human face. You just can't. So you would have to film The Rock actually doing all the actions and stuff like that when you're focusing on his face. But I mean, when he's far away, when he's moving around and stuff, it works.
Yeah, because
it's just when you look at
especially when you put him in combat with either of the two, there's a clear disconnect between this is real and this is not.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think. I think the way that you have to do it is you have to do it practical, but you don't focus on the body. You put the body, and when he's moving around in the distance and in the background in the dark, maybe.
Yeah.
So you kind of see like his whole body working, but when he's like attacking and like trying to nab at Rick O'Connell,
you close in a bit more.
You have to close in, and you make actual claws.
Yeah.
And you just don't show the body doing it, but you kind of do what they did with Spider-Man 2. The arms are practical.
Yeah.
And you just have them move the arms without showing the body.
Yeah.
When they're doing it. Maybe that's how you
like I said, you a bit more practical, because it just kind of helps.
Yeah.
It truly helps to be able to have real object with real people.
Yeah. And also you get the genuine like moving about.
Yeah.
Like probably the worst scene in 1999's The Mummy, which is still one of my favorite films. Just saw it in theaters because it re-released for the 25th anniversary. I was pretty stoked. the worst scene I think in that movie isn't like the sand monster, when he's like taking control of the sand, or even when he's walking around just like the CGI mummy model. The worst part is when Rick O'Connell is fighting the mummies, and you can tell when the mummies are the CGI mummies.
Yeah.
Because they have practical ones, and they look amazing.
Oh, yeah.
But when he's fighting and he's swinging his sword around wildly and stuff, it's really clearly like they've generated the CGI goons.
Yeah.
And as a result, it doesn't look natural because he's swinging wildly, and they added in that, oh yeah, he's slicing up all these mummies and stuff, but as a result, he has these like super clean, fast strokes.
Yeah, there's no resistance.
Yeah, he's not hitting anything.
Yeah. Which would be slightly hard to do with practical. Actually, not super hard to do with practical.
Well, you just don't have him chop a dude in half. You have him...
Well, Lord of the Rings, Gimli.
Okay.
Anytime... This was discussed in an interview. Anytime he had a fight scene, the character's playing the Orokai. Which is like, okay, so we're going to come at you now, and you swing at us and try not to hit us, but it's okay if you do, because we got our padding on and everything.
Yeah.
And he hit them every single time. Like, he went full bore into the fight.
Yeah. You kind of have to do that, because the way that, like, let's say a bat, when you hit something, it's going to jump, and your arm's going to move in a way that you don't expect. Yes, you're swinging with purpose, but when it hits something, you can't just pretend that reaction.
Yeah.
It's like swinging and hitting a baseball.
Yeah.
You don't expect how the baseball is going to react with your hand, but you can kind of tell if I CG'd a baseball, you can kind of tell that he didn't actually hit anything. He just swung.
Yeah.
You can't. And so with weapons too, you kind of have to do where it's like, even if you just go, here's a dummy, here's a mannequin,
here's a dummy, here's a pad, and here's a soft weapon.
Yeah. Like I think that's kind of how you have to do it, because it's easy to CG like a gunfight.
Yeah.
Because all you have to do is you have to, you even with
recoil.
blanks, with recoil, you can get a little bit of recoil with the blanks and stuff. That's the only thing you have to really pretend. Because bullet hits at such a pace that people kind of react the same way to getting shot, and Hollywood has its way of going about it. And stuff. So that's easy to CG and whatever. But when it comes to like practically hitting and swinging, like melee weapons, you kind of have to have it practical.
Yeah.
So, all right. Anything else you want to talk about with this? Like, I don't mean like hijack. I think I've talked most of the time.
No, you're good.
Right.
I've gotten my quips in. I've gotten my lines. I've gotten what I feel.
You've gotten what you feel out.
I've let practical effects know how I feel about them, and I hope they know I love them.
Practical effects senpai.
Notice me.
Notice me. Notice me, practical effects artist.
All right.
Anyway, it's fun though. Like I like talking about CG. I like talking about this stuff, like especially because it is important. It is an ongoing discussion. Like, how do you handle the CG? How do you handle the practical? How do you handle all these things? Especially because CG is not going away.
It's not. It's going to become more and more prevalent. Like I was saying,
it's just a matter of how do you do it justice.
Correctly.
Yeah. How do you do it right? And I think we've kind of hit on it. It can't be the tool unless it is the entire scene. It has to be used, I think, sparingly and in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. There's a lot of different things we could talk about. We could talk about it again in another episode. Because, I mean, there's a lot of things you can discuss. Like, why is it that CG in Harry Potter from, like, the early 2000s was better than The Flash? Why is it that the MCU is so reliant on CGI when it used to be such a good, happy blend? What is that happy medium? You know, there's a lot of aspects.
There's many of paths to tread.
Yeah.
On the realm of this debate.
Definitely. And it's interesting that it is a debate, because it seems like a lot of people are like, oh, they're just going to get rid of practical effects, but I don't think you can ever get rid of practical.
You can't truly get rid of it.
I don't think you ever will. And I think also more and more people are starting to realize how important it is to have that practical effect, because even like new shows and stuff like that have these practical effects in ways that you wouldn't even really expect. Like, weren't the suits, the power armor in Fallout, weren't those practical with like CG assistance?
I think a lot of it was practical.
Yeah,
like there's a lot of, like I was saying, there's a lot that comes down to when you have real with real.
Yeah. Real with real, CG versus on CG. When you mix the two is when...
That's when
when you get the issues.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we could just start this all over again and go for another hour and a half, but I think we've talked enough about this. If you guys are wanting more, like if you want us to talk about this more, let us know in the comments below. We're more than happy to talk about anything related to movies. And if that interests you and you haven't already, please consider subscribing. And if you haven't, please consider liking this video. We appreciate any feedback you are willing to give us. Huh?
This isn't a video.
Well, it goes on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like it mainly goes on YouTube. I'm just used to it.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out the podcasting stuff. So if we did figure it out, congratulations. If we didn't, though,
the secret message.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll see you guys in the next video, podcast, whatever.
See ya.